Welcome to Gun Talk Hunt. Today on Gun Talk Hunt, we're going to talk about knives. That's right, knives. Knives are just one of those tools that you bring with you when you're out in the field hunting. So
It's the most underutilized tool in a hunter's kit. That's the last thing people typically think about.
yeah, is your knife hunt worthy? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But first, Gun Talk Hunt is brought to you by ATN, the future of optics, and by Timney Triggers, the world's finest triggers. Also, Springfield Armory, the M1A. Springfield Armory has a variety of M1A rifles to fit your needs, from the SOCOM 16 compact tactical model to the Scout Squad model or the standard loaded National Match Super Match. These are all 308s. You could hunt with them if you wanted to. Also, a lot of people are hunting with AR-15s. They've got the Saint series, Saint Victor, Saint Edge rifles. We've used them. Find out more about your next rifle or handgun at springfield-armory.com. And Timney Triggers, limited time deal, special bundle deal with all the AR triggers purchased for 40% off.
Am I reading this right? We've got a breaking deal here.
I'm like, wait a minute. For 40% off when buying any AR trigger, you get an AR-49ER safety selector and 2 trigger pins. Original price is $75, $76. So the deal price automatically added to your cart in checkout. So go buy an AR trigger. Honestly,
You replace every one of them, don't you?
every single one of them. When they say it has a mil-spec AR trigger, that means bad trigger.
Well, it doesn't.
To me.
It doesn't always mean bad trigger, because there's a lot of guys there that they can't. They are not going to replace that trigger because that's the AR they bought. They might like a mushy trigger, but why spend
I like
your
bad
life?
triggers. No, you don't.
Once
You
you
just
feel
haven't
it,
used a good trigger, perhaps.
and that might be it. Is that they haven't used it, because here's the deal: when you're hunting, you're out in the field with an AR. I do not want a mil-spec trigger.
No,
Because
especially not hunting, no.
your trigger pull and your trigger press have to be what? Consistent.
Yeah.
Consistency is key in the field, or if you're on the range. Because once you have that built into your memory, you know when that shot's going to break, right?
Yeah.
It's science.
It's scientifical. Timney Triggers, affordable triggers since 1946. They're easy to drop in. Check them out at timneytriggers.com. So there you go.
Okay.
Knives. Let's talk about knives.
Let's talk about knives. But first I want to ask you, okay, I pull this out. It's kind of odd. I would say second to the knife, this is the most underutilized tool in my whole hunting kit. What would you say it is?
Toilet paper? I don't know.
Well, no. That's not
fully
underappreciated.
utilized.
That's fully utilized. But that's close. You're actually on the right track, I think, with it. Have you ever heard, and this is going to sound ridiculous, have you ever heard of a tool called the butt out?
Okay. I actually do know what this is. Now we're really getting into hunt talk here.
I'm telling you, that is, if you don't have one, you need to get one.
All right. So for all you deer hunters out there,
Or elk.
it'll work on elk.
Or bear. Like any game animal. Except
Go ahead and just dive in there,
Okay,
KJ.
so what it is, and it really is a good tool. So when you're cleaning an animal, you have to take all the innards out, all that stuff. Well, there's some stuff that just stays in that you don't want contaminating your meat or anything.
Right.
Like especially if you have to leave it out overnight. Mm-hmm. And so I was out in Outdoor Rider Conference one year, and I got 2 pieces of equipment that have like really changed the way I deer hunt. Well, one is a cleaning deer, the other one is how I hunt deer. But the first one is the butt out. And so what happens is that it's like this pronged
Plug
piece of
thing.
plastic thing, and you insert it into the tail end of the animal, you twist it, and then everything comes out, and you're left with a clean carcass. And I'm telling you,
That was a very
handiest tool
That was a
ever.
fairly mature PG way to explain it there, KJ.
I'm trying to keep our
He's a
audience
communicator,
like
professional
involved.
communicator. But
I don't want to like go, wait, what?
The
Did I click on the wrong podcast? Like,
the butt out.
the butt out. It's called the butt out. It's great.
Okay.
But What I would say is the number one underutilized and overthought. I think a lot of guys don't think about their knives that often, and how big of part it plays in a hunt. Because when we talk about hunting, I don't want guys caught up on the trophy and what am I going to shoot and everything like that. How you harvest it and what you get out of the animal is as important to the hunt itself.
Well, I've always been. I love hunting, but I've always been more of a meat hunter than a trophy hunter. I really enjoy getting the meat. I really enjoy cooking it and having that stuff in the freezer all year. So yeah, that's part of it. And some hunters will go as far as doing the whole processing themselves. I've never actually done that. I've never processed a deer all the way through. I skin it, bring it to the butcher or whatever.
And that's not a problem at all. Like I've actually grown into that. But back in, I mean, gosh, man, like 25, 30 years ago, when I was really doing everything myself and all that good stuff, I would do it all myself. And if I didn't have the right knife, I mean, you're wasting.
It's frustrating.
You're very wasteful, and
Yeah.
I hated that. And a good butcher, and even I've gone as far to go spend a couple weekends with a butcher.
That'd be a good idea.
Like just go with him and watch how
go
he
spend a day or
processes.
two.
I mean, it's so easy, and you see how they do it, and
And they have tricks.
Oh, I was not doing that. And you'll see the knives they pull out. They're extremely sharp, but they're for a job, you know, and they're very quick at what they do. But they're always open to explain stuff. But I would highly recommend that to anybody who's like wanting to do it themselves. Spend a little time with those guys. But
So I've got a story for you.
Oh gosh,
about knives.
It's a knife. Is it a hunting story?
Well, it's about knives and quality gear and all that. And you picked out a few different knives that you like, and we put some links to them in the description of this. So if you're listening to this or watching this, you can click in the description and you can click through to check out some of the knives we're talking about here. But this is actually a story from one of my dad's friends was a buyer for REI.
Okay.
Several decades ago, when REI was still into, they do a lot of hunting stuff.
They enjoyed it.
They weren't as granola as they are now, perhaps. So the buyer sitting in his office, and this knife salesman guy came in, and he's explaining the knife, and we have all these different things, and here's these sheaths for it. And the buyer says, well, look, I mean, the knife's nice, but that sheath is really flimsy. That little leather sheath you have it in, it's very flimsy. And that knife could poke through the sheath if it got folded over or whatever.
Right.
And he goes, no, it won't. Let me show you. So he takes the sheath and he pulls the knife out of the sheath about halfway. He folds the little leather sheath over the tip of the knife and he plunges it into his thigh.
No.
Boom!
No.
And he proved the buyer correct. It went right through the little thin sheath, and he stabbed himself in the leg in the meeting room.
In the meeting room.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me. What possesses a person to want to do that?
He was convinced.
I'm gonna sell this.
He was going Billy Mays on him. I'm going to show you this.
Oh my gosh! And and he cuts his femoral artery, and then we've got a whole mess on our hands.
He stabbed himself.
Oh my gosh!
I just thought that was really funny.
I mean,
so get good gear.
Yeah, get good gear. And
a good sheath.
I've got a million stories on not me and knives. Like I really do, because even this past year, and this is one of the instances that I actually have documented.
Go ahead. Let's dive into this story.
I have documented evidence of how horrible it is to not have the correct knives. So I go up to Canada, and I take roughly somewhere between 5 to 7 knives. Like I don't want to be without a knife that I'm going to have, because I process that whole animal myself. If I kill an elk or a bear, I skin it, I quarter it, I debone it, and then I get it to a processor. So it's ready to go quickly, because I can't spend 3 weeks waiting on an animal to get back in Canada to bring back home.
Right.
So it's all myself. Well, that morning was the first morning I go out, and I'm like, do I take a knife? And I'm like, I'm not going to carry a backpack because I'm really more run and gun. So I was like, I'm not that far away. I'll just go ahead don't throw a knife in with me. Just grab my gun
Cardinal
and go.
sin.
Yeah, I jinx myself immediately right there. Well, my dad packed a knife, and we happened to get on elk, and I was first up. I get in position. I take this elk, and in all the all the glory, I'm sitting there basking in. I realize, what am I going to do for a knife? And so I get all the photos taken. I get the video taken that I need to. And then my dad shows up, and he shows up, I kid you not, it's a Bubba blade that I had given him years ago. And this is one of their skinning knives, and it's 7-inch blade. Well, I've got to clean the animal first. So I need the innards out, and doing it with a 7-inch blade is not good. I mean,
Not
the Bubba
preferable.
blade is a great knife.
Oh, they're awesome. I love Bubba
great.
blades. I've used them for cleaning ducks. It's like just like a hot knife through butter
is.
almost. It's just awesome.
And I use them all around the house. I think they're very useful. And actually, as a skinning knife, it worked wonders. I mean, especially on a big animal, you want a bigger blade. You don't want to go with like your Havilon.
But you were looking
Piranhas.
for a smaller knife.
I was looking for a smaller knife
cleaning.
that's more maneuverable, and they
Yeah.
have a 4-inch model that would work.
You just didn't
It's
have
still
it
a
on you.
Skinner, but I didn't have it on me. I think I messed around with this elk for close to 30 minutes, trying, and I'm by myself. And this elk is, 850 plus
You're
pounds.
wrestling the elk.
I'm wrestling this elk. I'm sweating. I'm cussing all through the video. And I get it back to the editors, and I go, okay, guys, there's a clip that you're probably going to want to watch. It could be something, but it could be nothing, but you'll laugh either way. And it's a whole video of me sitting there trying to clean this animal with the wrong knife.
Yeah.
And years ago, my uncle had told me, I go up hunting with him a lot up in Canada. He had told me years ago, he said, the only knife you need to buy one knife set, and it's going to run you about $30. And I was like, a whole set? And he goes, yeah, you're going to get 8 knives. You're going to get some chopping blades. Heck, you'll even get a bread knife. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he was actually talking about the Miracle Blade. The ones like on TV.
Yeah.
Like, so the ones on TV, and I actually brought one of them.
The Miracle
And
Blade.
it is a Miracle Blade. This blade is probably, gosh, man, this blade is probably close to 12 years old, and still is probably one of the best blades that I have found
For hunting, for in the field?
for in the field use of cleaning game. Now it will skin and it will debone meat really well. I don't know what they've done. I don't know how they sharpened it
miracle.
with unicorn tears. I don't know what they did, but it's probably one of the better blades that I've actually been able to utilize in the field. Actually, from start to finish, from cleaning the animal to skinning the animal to deboning the animal to eating the animal. So
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
it's like your all around knife. But nowadays,
You can't find a Miracle Blade anymore, though, I'm sure.
You can on Amazon. They have them, and so
Well, what are some of the ones that, because we put some links in here, we're talking about some
that's
different
on
ones.
there. The Bubba Blade Skinner's on there, but the Havilon blade, which a lot of guys are using.
Oh, yeah,
those.
the secret's
I
out
use
about
it.
that.
I've got mine.
Swappable blades.
I've got mine here, and this is actually the larger Piranta, and it's if you're listening to this, it still has. I mean, it is caked in deer blood. I mean, it's pretty bad. It's pretty worn.
Yeah, you don't look like you've washed that knife a whole lot.
I don't. Because I replaced the blades, and that's what's really nice about these. Havilons, and Gerber makes a really good one too that have replaceable blades.
Talked about replacing blades. So my uncle has owned restaurants for a long time and is a chef. And we were talking about knives, like chefs and their knives and all that stuff. And as far as like at his house, in his kitchen. And you'd be surprised at what he says. He goes and buys like just a set that you'd buy at Sam's Club or Costco or something like that. And he's like, they're pretty good. And, I'll spend a couple $100 for a set of knives, and I'll use them until they get dull, and then I throw them away. And then I go buy a new set. Because I guess his thing is like, once they won't hold an edge or whatever, like after a certain amount of time, it's done. It's over.
That's interesting because you see all these cooking shows and they unroll. Like they have this leather holder that they unroll, and it's like the big reveal of what kind of knives you're using.
Probably
but it's
thousands of dollars of knives.
See, it's just the same thing. It's just going to the Miracle Blade and going, you know what? It's a great blade. It'll last me so long. It's not like it costs you a lot of money. And it's like the Pronta from Havalon. I mean, it's a $30 knife. Your blade replacements, you'll get like 12 to 15 of them. And it's one blade can last you 3 to 4 deer.
Yeah.
Because you're not to do a lot of your finer cuts with this. You know, you're gonna get in there, you're gonna clean the animal, and that's really all you're gonna use that blade for. And then I'll move either to, like for a skinning knife, like I'll move to only fixed blade knives. I don't use any folders for skinning purposes, because if you get going and you're peeling that hide back and you're running over that skin, and you don't need anything to fail. And I've never found a fixed blade that has failed me on that.
I love fixed blades for that.
Yeah.
Another knife tool in the toolbox when you go outside into the outdoors is some kind of machete.
Yeah.
I love a machete. It's just multi-purpose. We'll run out in the morning going duck hunting, and we'll chop a bunch of brush to brush up. Even the boat has a blind built in.
Right.
One of the ways we hunt, but we'll get extra brush to kind of make it look natural and all that.
Yeah.
But you just stop at a spot and cut some brush with a machete.
So,
and the modern ones are awesome.
Yeah. So you've hunted ducks a lot more than I have. I mean, it's just, how we grew up, the areas that we grew up, kind of different locations. What would be your advice for a guy heading out into the woods? Like, I'm going duck hunting this year. I want a good knife. What advice would you give him on what to look for?
Well, I mean, the machete or something like that, if you're going to cut brush, which is helpful. Honestly, the way I typically do ducks is eventually, you clean them or however you need to transport them the right way.
Right.
But a lot of times I'll use a fillet knife to breast out the ducks or whatever. If I have time, I love to pluck them and do it that way because, like I said, I like to cook, so I like to have the skin on and have that option. But a fillet knife, a smallish fillet knife works great.
I think that's one of those things. And I've actually used the Havalon and the Gerber knives for cleaning ducks, but I'd never thought about, again, that comes from years of use and what works, what doesn't. And I think a lot of this is just that, is we're gaining this greater knowledge, and because I wouldn't take this skinning knife fixed blade. Will it work? Yeah, it probably will, but it's just not the ideal blade use for the job that you're going to do.
Yeah. It's just, we get into, when it comes to really all this stuff, whether it's shooting or hunting or whatever, but especially hunting, oh my gosh, it's all very gear centric.
It is.
And so it's, on one hand, it's fun to talk about all the cool gear. On the other hand, you don't want to discourage people. You want to say, look, you don't have to buy everything at the Bass Pro or Cabela's or whatever.
No,
you just need certain things, unless you just like it.
I used to be that guy. I used to be the guy that, okay, my camo has to match because the deer say so, right? I have to have the top of the line gear. And now I'm finding ways to, one, save money because, I don't have a lot. I'm more of a run and gun kind of guy when it comes to my hunting strategies, and so I can't carry a lot of gear.
Right.
I've been running, I would run, I would have 30 tree stands. Why? Just have one and a good pair of climbing sticks and clear out all your shooting leads before season. You don't have to go in and man, I was buying everything. I'd buy it all.
Yeah.
Every single cent that I made that I could buy extra was going towards a hunting stand.
Doe pea, buck pea,
yeah,
I don't know,
whatever.
Raccoon pea.
Whatever. I was out there milking does for, just trying to get every advantage I could. But it's the simple strategies and simple ways to save money, just buy the good. But one thing that you do need to watch out for is the gear that is essential, and I think knives are one of those deals.
Yeah, and I like having a knife on me, on my person. So in a sheath with a belt, in my belt. That's a nice thing.
Yeah.
Another, thinking about knives, our good buddy Cy Brown, who we've had on Gun Talk Hunt.
Yes.
He's a big he's a big hog hunter, and he carries
Big K-bar.
a big K-bar, like a 9-inch blade K-bar that is good for
Sticking.
sticking hogs, for finishing them off. That's a different use of a knife.
Yeah, I kind of go about it a little bit different. And in my hunting pack, I'll carry my fixed blades. I'll carry a couple fixed blades, a gutter and a skinner. Those are the two blades I'll have, and then I'll have
unless you're going elk hunting.
Yeah, and then I just take nothing. But I'll just carry a utilitarian knife. Whether you need to cut rope or anything like that, something that you can use around camp, and that's really all I'm using. And those are so disposable. I mean, you can get rid of those in and out.
Wait a minute. Think about the knife we were looking at last week. The Smith & Wesson accessories. They have Smith & Wesson knives.
They do.
And they had I guess I'd call it a machete type of big, huge blade, but on the top of it was you turn it upside down, basically. It was a saw.
Yeah, it was a saw. That's a great knife to have too. I mean, it's something that doesn't take up a lot of room. That's 8 to 12 inches long it would be a great option, at least for blade size.
Yeah.
goes.
So that's just a little knife talk for you.
We didn't get too far down in the weeds as far as like, should it have a drop point, or what should the tang be? We didn't get down in the weeds like that, but it's more of an overall philosophy on how you need to rethink the tools in your kit, and especially for beginner hunters. I mean, I think that's one of the easiest things to get lost in is what are the essentials.
Right. Yeah, a good fixed blade, but think about what you're going to be using it for. It's different if you're cleaning ducks or if you're cleaning an elk.
It is, absolutely, and think outside the box, just like your fillet knife on ducks.
So if you're interested, click the links in the description, and we've got some of the stuff we talked about, and actually it'll take you to a place that has lots and lots of knives, and you can go down that rabbit hole. You'll probably end up with like
Blade HQ is possibly one of the easiest sites to spend a couple hours on.
Well, the problem, but it's really great.
It really is
that you go and you go, whoa, that's really cool. And you're like, what? That's only $30?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally gonna get one of those.
Yeah.
And then after it's all said and done, you spend a few $100s and you've got 8 knives on the way to you.
Yeah. I mean, it's an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Because there's a knife for everything.
Cool. That's it for us. Thanks for listening to Gun Talk Hunt.